vodka for breakfast, destroying billion-dollar careers by lunch, psychologically breaking grown men by dinner. Today we are breaking down the psychology of the most dangerous woman on television, Beth Dutton. If you scroll through Reddit or read the critics, you'll see the world is split into two violent camps regarding the daughter of Yellowstone. To one side, she is the ultimate alpha female, a girl boss, feminist icon who takes no prisoners. To the other, she is a cartoon villain, a toxic mess of bad writing who belongs in an asylum, not a boardroom.
Most people write her off as a chaos agent who exists just to shock the audience. But after watching this character tear through 5 seasons of television, I realized that both of these takes are lazy. They are missing the point entirely. If you think she's just crazy for the sake of drama, you aren't paying attention to the game being played beneath the surface. I didn't just watch the show. I spent the last week deconstructing every single one of her business deals, analyzing her corporate warfare tactics against real-world economic strategies, and most importantly, running her behavioral symptoms through the DSM-5 clinical manual used by actual psychiatrists. What I found is that Beth isn't a psychopath. She isn't a hero. She is a walking, talking biological weapon created by a very specific set of traumas. In this video, we are going to break down the genius behind her financial suicide missions, diagnose the real disorder driving her rage, and reveal why she is actually the most rational person on the ranch. This isn't just a character analysis. This is a masterclass in the economics of revenge. Let's dive in. Before we get to the heavy psychological trauma that defines her, we have to look at her actual intellect, because this is where most people get filtered. Winning in the cutthroat world of land development isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It is about hacking human psychology, and Beth is a grand master. Strip away the emotion, the drinking, and the insults, and you see that she is pulling off financial moves that would make the Wolf of Wall Street look like an amateur. You have to understand that in a normal Western, when a rival comes for the land, the characters grab a Winchester rifle. Beth grabs a Bloomberg terminal. Take the war with market equities in Season 3. Most viewers watched those scenes and just saw Beth being aggressive. But what she was actually executing was a textbook short squeeze. She didn't just attack the company, she attacked their liquidity. She planted negative press to drive the stock price down, forcing panic selling, and weaponized fear to hit them in the only place a corporation feels pain, their market cap. But then, she does something that seems like a total failure. Market Equities counters by buying her company, Schwartz & Meyer, specifically to fire her and crush her. The audience expectation here is defeat. We expect her to be humiliated. But the reality was, it was a trap. She wanted them to buy the company. Why? Because buried in the fine print of the acquisition was a clause that let her keep the land deeds surrounding the Yellowstone ranch. She made the enemy spend millions to buy a hollow shell, while she walked away with the moat around her father's castle. She sacrificed her job to secure the perimeter. Most people try to win every battle. Beth understands that you sometimes have to lose the battle to win the war. Now, understanding these kinds of strategic archetypes, the difference between a tactician and a strategist, is exactly what I break down in my newsletter, The Character Blueprint. If you're trying to write complex characters or just understand the psychology behind these power moves, that's where I go deeper into the frameworks. But back to Beth, because her next move is where she goes from smart to terrifying. What she does in Season 5 proves she operates on a completely different moral axis than anyone else on the show. She utilizes a conservation easement. This sounds like boring legal jargon, so most people tuned it out. But it was actually a nuclear strike. In real estate, land has value because of what you can build on it. Developers like Market Equities want the land for airports, ski resorts, and cities. That potential is what makes the land worth billions, and that money is the blood in the water attracting the sharks. So, Beth places the ranch in a land trust under a conservation easement. This is a binding federal agreement that says this land can never be developed.
It must remain a ranch forever, ? In one signature, she took land worth billions to developers and turned it into land worth zero. She evaporated the asset value. She burned the money to save the dirt. To Beth, money isn't the goal. Money is just ammunition. And once the war is over, you don't need the bullets anymore. This is what makes her so dangerous. She is a genius, yes, but her genius is entirely destructive. She doesn't build, she mines the perimeter. This requires a brain that can detach from emotion, a coldness that borders on sociopathy. But this begs the question, if she is such a strategic, cold-blooded genius in the boardroom, why is she so emotionally unstable everywhere else? Why the bar fights, the screaming matches, and the uncontrollable rage? To understand the monster, we have to look at the factory that built her. We have to go back to the blood, the shame, and the secret that destroyed her soul. The business genius is her shield. It is the armor she built to protect the broken thing inside. But the aggression? That is her immune system reacting to a threat. To understand the monster, we have to look at the factory that built her. We have to look at the blood, the shame, and the secret that destroyed her soul. We have to go back to the 0 point. Imagine the single worst moment of your life. Now imagine that moment is being blamed for the death of the person you loved most. By that person, while they were dying in your arms. Go back to the day Evelyn Dutton died. It was a tragic accident involving a spooked horse and a frightened child. But here is where the expectation versus reality gap destroys a human being. The expectation is that a dying mother will comfort her weeping child. She will say, "It's okay," or "I love you." The reality was a curse. As Evelyn lies in the snow with a crushed spine, she looks her daughter dead in the eye and delivers the line that defines the entire series. "She should have been a man. This is your fault." Imagine the weight of that. The person supposed to protect you uses their final breath to tell you that you are a mistake and a killer. In that moment, Beth's safety was replaced by a permanent chain of guilt. This is what birthed her complex PTSD. Beth doesn't just grieve her mother. She believes she murdered her. She internalized that curse. She believes she is inherently evil. This finally explains her suicidal lack of fear in the boardroom and the bar room. She walks into gunfights and stands in front of wolves not because she is a quote-unquote badass, but because she genuinely doesn't care if she dies. Subconsciously, she believes she deserves it. Every fight she picks isn't aggression. It is a request for punishment. This self-hatred is actually the fuel for her business genius. She hates weakness because she believes softness is what killed her mother. So she adopted toxic traits of masculinity, aggression, dominance, emotional suppression to become the son her father needed and the warrior her mother demanded. But there is another wound, a secret that festered in the dark for decades that explains why she is so uniquely cruel to one specific person. We have to talk about Jamie. The relationship between Beth and Jamie is the most toxic dynamic on television, and for seasons, the audience was confused. Why does she hate him so much? It seemed disproportionate, but the reveal is one of the darkest plot twists in modern TV history. It wasn't just a betrayal, it was a biological theft. Here's the reality. When Beth got pregnant as a teen with Rip's baby, she was terrified. She went to the only person she thought she could trust, her big brother, Jamie. He took her to a clinic on the reservation to handle it quietly. But there was a catch that Jamie knew and Beth didn't. The clinic required a hysterectomy, full sterilization for an abortion. Jamie made the executive decision to protect her from shame. He thought he was solving a problem, but what he actually did was mutilate her. He stole her future. When she woke up, she wasn't just not pregnant. She was no longer able to be a mother. Ever. This is the key to the entire psychopath versus victim debate. Beth wants to be a mother, desperately. She wants to do it right, to be better than Evelyn, to give a child the love she was denied. Being a mother was her only hope of proving to herself that she isn't a monster. Jamie cut that timeline. He severed her lifeline to redemption. So when she looks at Jamie across the dinner table, she doesn't see a brother. She sees her own mistake. She sees the living embodiment of her foolish trust. She destroys him relentlessly, not because she enjoys pain, but because it is the only way she can kill the naive little girl inside herself who trusted him. Every time she hurts Jamie, she is retroactively punishing herself. This context changes everything. The business berserker looks less like a girl boss and more like a woman screaming for help. She attacks the world because the world attacked her first. But does this trauma actually justify her actions? Does a tragic backstory give you a free pass to destroy lives?
To answer that, we need to look at her clinical diagnosis. Is she actually a psychopath or something else entirely? We have established the trauma. We have uncovered the roots of the hatred. But this brings us to the question every viewer asks: is she crazy? The internet labels her a psychopath. On the surface, it fits. She is aggressive, manipulative, charming, and seems to lack any form of remorse. But as we peel back the layers using the PCLR, the Psychopathy Checklist Revised, that diagnosis falls apart. Beth definitely ticks the box for superficial charm and grandiose self-worth. She belittles men because she genuinely knows she is intellectually superior. She also ticks the box for lack of empathy. When she destroys a career, she doesn't apologize, she doubles down. However, there is a fatal flaw in the Beth is a psychopath theory. True psychopaths are incapable of forming deep, self-sacrificial emotional bonds. They view people as objects to be used. A psychopath would never burn their own inheritance just to save their father's legacy. A psychopath would never sob in their lover's arms out of fear of losing them. Beth Dutton is not a psychopath. She is a textbook case of borderline personality disorder, BPD, combined with the complex PTSD we discussed earlier. People with BPD are defined not by a lack of emotion, but by an excess of it. They are exposed nerves. They are driven by a desperate, clawing fear of abandonment. Look at her relationship with John Dutton. It isn't just loyalty, it is a terrifying need for validation. She is terrified that if she stops being the monster who protects the ranch, he will abandon her, just like her mother did. This explains her extreme aggression and a symptom psychologists call splitting. For Beth, there is no gray area. You are either family, and I will burn the world for you, or you are enemy, in which case you are not human to me. She guards the inner circle with a flamethrower. To see this in action, look at the controversial fight with Summer Higgins. Summer represents idealism, a world where animals aren't killed and violence is wrong. To Beth, Summer represents the kind of softness that gets you killed in the wild. When Beth beats her, it isn't sadism, it's a twisted form of education. She is teaching Summer, your ideals won't save you, only strength saves you. Beth views herself as the wolf dog guarding the sheep. She hates the sheep for being weak, but she will still kill the wolves to protect them. This brings us to the only person who can handle the wolf, Rip Wheeler. We forgive Beth because Rip loves her. Their relationship is built entirely on shared trauma. They are two broken pieces of glass that fit together perfectly. For Beth, Rip represents the one thing she has never had, emotional safety. He is her container. She is the storm, and he is the mountain. She screams and pushes, and he just stands there, immovable. Think about their wedding on the roof. It wasn't about obeying. It was about rushing towards death together. She loves Rip enough to try and push him out of the blast radius, but he loves her enough to stand in the fire with her. This humanizes her and proves a heart beats beneath the armor. And this leads us to the final, most important revelation. If she isn't a villain, and she isn't a hero, then what is she? The answer lies in an ancient piece of folklore that perfectly explains her role in the Dutton family. She isn't a villain. She isn't a hero. Beth Dutton is a sin eater. In Old Welsh folklore, a sin eater was a marginalized person who would essentially eat a ritual meal to spiritually take on the sins of a deceased person, allowing that person to go to heaven while the sin eater carried the burden of their damnation. That is exactly, mathematically, what Beth does for John Dutton.
John wants to be the good man. He wants to be the moral cowboy king who protects the valley. But maintaining a billion-dollar empire requires evil deeds. It requires blood. So, Beth volunteers to be the executioner. She destroys Jamie, so John doesn't have to kill his own son. She ruins careers and breaks laws, so John can keep his hands clean and his conscience clear. She absorbs the malice, the violence, and the hatred, so the paradise of Yellowstone remains pure for her father. When you view her through this lens, her cruelty stops looking like sadism and starts looking like sacrifice. She acts like a monster so her father can remain a man. She traded her soul, her body, and her peace of mind for a few thousand acres in Montana. In a corporate world of fake politeness and HR euphemisms, Beth is the only honest person in the room. She is the id. She rejects the societal expectation for women to be agreeable and decides that if the world is going to hurt her, she will hurt it back twice as hard. So, where does that leave us? Is she a genius? Yes. Is she a psychopath? No. She feels too much love and too much pain for that. She is a tragic figure, a woman molded by trauma into a weapon, a sword that can never be sheathed because there is always another war coming. Now, I turn the verdict over to you. Does the trauma justify the cruelty? Is she a necessary evil, or just a bully who needs therapy? And does Jamie deserve mercy, or is the sterilization unforgivable? Type Team Beth in the comments if she is the tragic hero, or Team Jamie if she is the victim. And if you want to understand how to build complex, psychologically layered characters like this for your own stories, I have a full breakdown of these storytelling archetypes in my free newsletter linked in the description. Thank you for watching. Remember, you are the trailer park, and I am the tornado. See you in the next one.